Hey everybody, what's going on? There's a lot going on with the Montreal Canadiens right now, specifically after they lost a big game to the Florida Panthers last night. If you tuned in for the first period to that hockey game and you started a little bit late, you probably missed a big amount of goals because there was plenty scored in that contest last night, which ultimately finished with a score of 9-5 in favor of the Florida Panthers. It was kind of a lose-lose hockey game for the Montreal Canadiens, because Florida ultimately beat them, picking up points in the standings, and the Montreal Canadiens have their first round pick. So we want Florida to lose in those matchups, but the Montreal Canadiens also lost, so they're continuing to falter in the standings, which is kind of exactly what fans that want to see the Montreal Canadiens get a higher draft pick have go down, and that's exactly what they've been doing of late. Sure, they picked up a victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins, but they've been losing a lot of late, but also seeing some developments from some key young players. So that's been the most important part of what's been transpiring of late. But I want to dive into the development of late, specifically with Jayden Struble signing a contract with the Montreal Canadiens for 2 years beginning next season. He'll start the year this season with the AHL's Laval Rocket as they push for a playoff position, but then his 2-year deal will kick in next year. He'll likely start with Laval as well. But I want to talk about the development of Struble and why he ultimately chose to sign with the Montreal Canadiens when he could have ultimately chosen a different route, one with more certainty as to where his role could be with an NHL club. The Montreal Canadiens have a log jam on the left side of their blue line for the future, and there's a lot of young kids coming up that profile similarly to Struble. Of course, Struble has benefits of his own. He's a big frame, one that can move the puck, although the point totals don't necessarily reflect that at the collegiate level with his time with the Huskies, but still, there's a lot of offensive promise to his game in the right system, and if you look hard enough, you'll see a lot of the promising things that he does bring to the table, and he's someone that could certainly be an impactful player at the NHL level one day, but there's still some warts to his game, which makes him a really intriguing prospect for the likes of Adam Nichols and the player development staff to really get a handle on him and see what he's capable of in this system moving forward. But I want to talk more so about why he chose to sign in Montreal and why I think this is really refreshing and interesting for what the Canadiens are looking to build moving forward. Because if you look back to the tenure under Marc Bergevin, there looked to be kind of a wavering presence as to whether prospects would like to sign with the Montreal Canadiens, whether they were going to forego their NHL career when you're talking about these collegiate players, because they do have a little more flexibility when it comes to that. Look at Jordan Harris with Marc Bergevin still in the handle as general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. There were whispers as to whether or not Harris wanted to sign with the Montreal Canadiens and whether or not he was ultimately going to do so. Enter Kent Hughes, who ultimately got Harris signed, and he's been able to play as a Montreal Canadien in a rookie this season and done so admirably as well. You've continued to see growth from Harris and the likes of some of those other young defensemen like Caden Gooley, Arbor Jacki when he was healthy, and even other players such as Mike Matheson, who's a little bit older, but you're starting to see that development kick in and really understand why the player development side of things is so important for an up-and-coming team like the Montreal Canadiens, who are finally getting with the times and investing in that particularly. But the real point of this that I'm trying to get in a long-winded answer about why it's important that Struble signed with the Montreal Canadiens is because you're seeing players that have confidence in what the Montreal Canadiens are doing with their player development, and you can see that Struble sees a path for his time to the Montreal Canadiens and how he can get to that path, which is important to players individually, but as well as the team as a whole. And I think it's just very important that a young prospect who has potential like Struble sees that the Canadiens can develop him into the player that he wants to be moving forward. And that's very important for how the Canadiens want to build this team moving forward. If you look at free agency, if you look at player development, if you look at what players like Chris Weidman and Mike Matheson have been saying about the Montreal Canadiens and their developmental staff, you'll see that there's a positive atmosphere going on with this Canadiens team right now, and that can only benefit the club moving forward, and that's super important and something that just really hasn't been present over the last 15 years with this club. That's it for me today from Cook's Corner. As always, let me know in the comment section down below what you think about the Jayden Struble signing for the Montreal Canadiens and what you think about the prospects of them developing talent moving forward. I'm Zach Cook. We'll see you later.